Welcome back to the Live at Wicked Hangout stream. We are continuing with the Adam Montgomery case. We have wrapped up with his wife Kayla's testimony after 8 long hours of listening to everything she had to say and her participation in the crimes and the abuse prior to Harmony's death. Real quick, the overarching story is that Adam is a 34-year-old father of 3. His 5-year-old daughter, Harmony, was reported missing in November 2021 by her biological mother, Crystal. Her mom had lost custody due to substance use. Crystal claims she had not seen her daughter since 2019. It is alleged that Adam harmed Harmony and disposed of her with the help of his wife, Kayla. Harmony's body has not been found, and it's also worth noting that Adam is still not present in court by choice, and the judge has been allowing this, which is definitely not something we're used to. Throughout this, you'll also see that the attorneys, more specifically prosecution, a lot of times will have a picture of Adam and show it to the jury and then have people identify him through that picture since he is not there in court to identify as the defendant. So it's also bringing that level of personal the personal aspect of who is Adam for the jury to be able to see and put a face to who everyone is talking about and accusing of these crimes. We are going to listen to a bunch of different people's testimonies today. We are first going to start with someone named Courtney. She is her husband is actually the childhood friend of Adam, so she is a little bit removed, but for the sake of it, we're going to call it the defendant's friend, but it's really her husband that was close with Adam since childhood. So we'll start with her and then get into some other coworkers and officers that have interacted with Adam and his family to hear their take on what they've observed of the family, and in addition to the fact that apparently Adam was in an accident in a vehicle, so we'll hear officers evaluate that vehicle as well, and if they found anything or whatever the case may be. Again, I haven't seen the trial. I'm watching it here with you guys for the first time, so this is just what I've gathered from compiling the video for you guys. So let's get started with Courtney, Adam's childhood friend's wife.
Nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you. Please feel free to have a seat.
Thank you.
And feel free to pour yourself a glass of water if you'd like for any reason. Ms. Garcia, as we're being recorded here today, would you please state your full name and spell both your first and your last name for the record?
Yes, my name is Courtney Garcia, Courtney Garcia.
Okay, thank you. And what city do you live in?
Manchester, New Hampshire.
How long have you lived here?
About 5 years.
And are you currently employed?
Not at the moment.
Okay. What kind of jobs have you had in your life?
I've had some supervisor positions. I've worked as a counselor in the addiction field, restaurant jobs.
Okay. And currently, right now, do you have any children?
I do.
Okay. How old?
13 months.
It sounds like a handful.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, with regards to the name Adam Montgomery, have you heard that name before?
Yes.
All right. How do you know Adam Montgomery?
He is a childhood friend of my husband.
Okay. And what's your husband's name?
Matthew Garcia.
With regards to Adam Montgomery, have you met him in person before?
I have.
Okay. And also, at any point in time, were the two of you working together?
Yes, he was one of my employees.
I'll just show you what's on Mark States Exhibit 101. Do you recognize that person?
Yes, that's Adam Montgomery.
That's Adam Montgomery. Same man, Adam Montgomery that we're talking about?
Yes.
I'd like to ask you very specifically about Mr. Montgomery. I'd like to ask about Thanksgiving of 2019.
Okay.
Did you see Mr. Montgomery on Thanksgiving of 2019 or around that time?
I did, on Thanksgiving.
On Thanksgiving Day?
Yes.
Okay.
It was in the evening.
I'm sorry, in the evening?
Yes.
Okay. And I would ask if you can just kind of scoot a little bit more forward, actually. You saw him in the evening, right?
Correct.
And when you saw him in the evening, let me ask, did you become aware of where he was living at the time?
Yes, I did. He was living in his vehicle.
What did the car look like?
It was a Chrysler Sebring, very bald tires, silver to my knowledge.
And where did you see him that evening?
I saw him at the Estataquag, I think that's how you pronounce it, apartments in Manchester, New Hampshire, in the parking lot.
Okay. What, if anything, did you do for him that day?
My husband and I provided Adam gas money, and we offered him a place to stay.
And that was on Thanksgiving, correct?
Correct.
All right. And what did Mr. Montgomery say to that when you offered him a place to stay that night? In regards to Thanksgiving and staying, what did the defendant say when you made that offer?
Adam was kind of for it, but Kayla and Adam ended up not agreeing to stay at our location.
Okay. And let me ask you, is that a conversation that you directly had with the defendant?
Yes.
And I believe a second ago you just said also Kayla. So Kayla, is that Kayla Montgomery?
Yes.
That particular day, did you see any other members of the family there?
Yes, they had their two sons and Harmony in the back seat.
Okay. And how did you see her in person in the back seat, or did you just know that she was there?
I just know that all three children were there. None of the children got out of the vehicle.
Okay. Did you look into the vehicle at any point to put eyes on them?
We offered them food, so I believe at one time I kind of put my hand in, and that was that. I didn't really look at the children, saw what I was there for.
Okay. And from your recollection today, how many children were in the car at that time?
3.
Thank you. Moving forward from Thanksgiving, I want to talk to you about the couple of months after that. Did you see the defendant again, Adam Montgomery, sometime between December and January, December of 2019 into January of 2020?
Multiple times.
Okay. And at any point in time during that month, December going into January, did you have a conversation with him about Harmony and her condition?
We did, yes. Or I did, yes.
Okay. Where did Mr. Montgomery say she was at that point?
He told us that he brought Harmony back to her mother.
Do you know what her mother's name is?
Crystal, maybe?
Okay. And let me ask, with regards to that, I apologize. Did the defendant ever tell you what her name is? I should have asked a better question there.
No,
okay.
He did not.
And with regards to how she was back with her mother, what did the defendant tell you about why that happened, or how it happened, or when it happened?
He told us that he brought her back to her mother because Harmony was having multiple accidents in the vehicle.
And by accidents, what do you mean by accidents?
She was using the bathroom in the vehicle.
What, if anything, did the defendant say about Harmony now being with her mother as compared to Harmony being with Adam?
I'm sorry, not.
Sure. At any point in time, did he talk about what kind of, with regards to what Harmony was being provided for, what she could be provided for from her mother as compared to what Adam was able to offer at that time?
A home.
A home?
Yes.
Just a moment, please, Your Honor. Let me ask you, Ms. Garcia, at one point, were you interviewed by officers of the Manchester Police Department about this interaction that we talked about today that you had
yes.
with Adam Montgomery?
Yes.
Okay. And during the time that you were speaking with them, did you tell them that the defendant told you that she was better off with her mother than with him at the time?
Basis? Hearsay. I'm sorry, the defendant.
Yes, I'm asking whether or not she reported those as the defendant's words at that time.
The objection is overruled.
Go ahead, Ms. Garcia.
Yes, he told us that she was better off with her mother because she could provide her a home. Adam could not.
All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Garcia. I don't have any further questions for you. I believe defense counsel will have a few.
Okay.
Hi, Ms. Garcia. You indicated on direct examination that a place to stay was offered for the night?
Correct.
Adam was kind of for it?
Yes.
Kayla wasn't?
Correct.
Thank you.
Alrighty, so that was pretty quick as far as that testimony. We are going to now shift to a past co-worker of the defendant. and hear what they have to say. They actually worked previously with Kayla and Adam, so Adam's wife and Adam as well in the past. I think maybe at 2 different times as well.
That the testimony you give this jury will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God.
Yes.
Thank you. Please feel free to have a seat. Ms. Frayne, as we're being recorded here today, would you please state your first and your last name for the record and spell them out for us?
Kimberly, Kimberly, Frayne, Frain.
Thank you, Ms. Frayne. Appreciate that. With regards to New Hampshire, do you live in the state?
Yes.
Okay. And generally, what town do you live in?
Meredith.
Meredith. And what are you doing for work right now?
I'm working in healthcare at a hospital.
Okay. And how long have you been doing that?
Almost 3 years.
How far have you gone in school?
I'm actually back in school now.
Oh, what are you studying?
Where?
What? I'm sorry. What are you studying?
It's kind of long. Healthcare administration.
Okay. And how long have you been, or how long do you have to go before you get a degree?
Like 3 more years.
3 more years?
Yeah.
All right. Pardon me. So I'm going to ask just one question at a time, so I'd ask you to please listen carefully to either my question or any other counsel's question that you get asked. And if I'm talking too quickly or if you don't understand my question, just let me know. I'll be happy to restate it, okay?
Okay.
All right, thanks. Prior to where you live now, did you used to live in Manchester back in 2019?
Yes.
Right. And do you know of somebody by the name of Adam Montgomery?
Yes.
Did you ever used to work at a Dunkin' Donuts on Beach Street in Manchester?
Yes.
How long did you work there?
Like 5 years.
About 5 years?
Maybe.
Okay. Let me ask, do you also know the name Kayla Montgomery?
Yes.
And what was when you, and have you met Kayla Montgomery?
Yes.
Right. What's the relationship between Kayla Montgomery and Adam Montgomery when you first met them?
I met them at work. We worked together. First, I worked with Kayla, and then Adam worked with us too.
With regards to Kayla and Adam, did you ever meet Adam's daughter, Harmony Montgomery?
Once.
One time?
Yes.
Did you ever spend time with her?
Yes, I babysat her and the 2 boys, or 1 boy at the time, at my house.
At your house?
Yeah.
And would this have been back in 2019?
Yeah, I think it was the summer of 2019.
I'd like to ask some specific questions for you about Adam Montgomery, specifically about beginning in the winter of that year at the end of 2019, all right?
Okay.
Right. Did you ever bring Adam Montgomery jumper cables to try to start a car?
Yes.
How many times have you done that for him?
Once.
Just the one time?
One time.
How did he reach out to you for help?
He either called me or it was on Facebook. I can't remember which. And he said that their car had died and it was freezing out and they wanted me to come jumpstart their car. And I told them no, but they kept begging and I felt bad. So I went.
Okay. So you said maybe they messaged you or reached out on Facebook. Is that right? Did you have a Facebook account at one point that just went by the name Kimberly Frayne?
Yeah.
Right. And is that the account that he might have messaged you on?
Yeah.
What time was this? What time of morning was this that Adam reached out, or you got these messages asking for a jump?
It was in the middle of the night. I just remember that. It was late.
So did you go to where they were and give them a jump?
I did.
Where did you go?
It's behind Elm Street in, I think it's Colonial Apartments.
Okay. And is that at the south side of town, west side, or north side of town?
It's like right down the road from my house on the north side.
Okay. When you saw them, do you remember what kind of car they were in that night?
Yeah, they were in a blue Audi.
Now, when you went to meet them, first of all, what was the weather like that night?
It was cold. It was freezing.
So when you got there, who, if anybody, got into your car?
I pulled up and I don't remember the beginning, but
I don't think I brought a jumper pack that my ex-husband had, and a good Samaritan came by, and him and Adam jump started it, and Kayla jumped in my car with the two boys, and we just blasted the heat to keep them warm.
To keep them warm?
Yeah.
So you said it was Kayla and the two boys?
Two boys.
Okay. So I know you said before that you had babysat Harmony on one occasion. Was Harmony there with you? Did she get into the car as well with Kayla and the two boys?
No.
Did you see Harmony at all while you were there that night?
No.
And I believe you said a good Samaritan came along. Do you remember who that is or even know who that is?
No, it was just somebody in the complex saw us struggling.
Okay. I guess I'll ask this one other question. After that one time, did you ever jump a car for them again?
No. I was distancing myself from them.
Do you remember the exact day that this occurred in the winter of 2019, end of 2019? Okay. Just that it was very cold out, is that right?
Yeah.
Just a moment, please, Your Honor. Thank you, Your Honor, and thank you, Ms. Frayne. I have one more question just for you in general. With regards to conversations that you've had with Adam Montgomery, the defendant in this case, with regards to the conversations, did you ever have a conversation with him about Harmony having bathroom accidents or wetting herself or defecating herself in her pants?
I don't think so. Not him.
Not him?
No.
Okay. With anybody else?
Maybe with Kayla, but I don't remember.
Okay. Well, and I don't want you to guess. So if you remember, you remember. If you don't, you don't. That's okay. And so you're saying your testimony is you don't.
I don't remember.
All right. All right. Thank you very much for your time. I have no further questions for you. I believe defense counsel may have a few.
Thank you.
Counsel? You want to move? Come up.
Yes, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
Okay.
You recalled that whatever car that you jumped, you thought it was a blue Audi?
Yeah.
And you know from before that Adam used to drive a Sebring?
It was a silver car.
Okay. This was not the car that Adam used to drive around, right? And you remembered this way back in 2021 when the police first asked you about it, right?
Yeah.
And your memory, even the first time you talked about it, was a blue Sebring. Blue Audi.
No, I think I might have told them I think I told them it was the silver car, but
Okay.
it was the Audi they were in.
Okay, so you're really clear about that, huh?
Yeah.
So what changed when you first said the Sebring and then sort of recalled the Audi?
I just couldn't remember the time frames because it was so long ago.
Okay. So I understand that, but what changed your recollection of the type of car? Overruled. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Okay. I think you said at first you told him it was the Sebring, but then the blue Audi when they first started questioning you on it, right?
Yeah.
Do you know what it was that made you say that it was the blue Audi?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
So, a little background of this attorney kind of hounding on the type of car, and this is something that I picked up right away when they said the blue Audi, is that the next testimony we're going to hear is from an officer that attended an accident that Adam was in. Apparently, that accident was with the Sebring, I believe. And later today, we will listen to a friend or acquaintance of Adam's that owned a blue Audi. So, presumably, this blue Audi that this person on the stand right now is referring to might have belonged to the friend or acquaintance that we'll hear later take the stand. So I'm not exactly sure what that dynamic is, whether they were actually friends or acquaintances, if he was given this car to drive or what the case is, but it's just something to keep an eye out for as we go along through today to see that the accident Adam was in was with the Sebring, and later one of his friends will talk about how he owned a blue Audi.
Anything further?
You remain standing. Raise your right hand. You swear that the testimony that you're about to provide will be the truth and nothing but the truth, only the pains and penalties of perjury.
Yes, I do.
You can have a seat. Make yourself comfortable. Officer Penton, can you start by stating and spelling your name for the record?
Officer Neil Pentinen, Neilpenttinen.
And Officer Penton, how are you presently employed?
I'm employed by the Manchester Police Department.
How long have you worked for the Manchester Police Department?
Since January of 2012.
And what is your current assignment?
I'm currently assigned to the Community Policing Unit.
And can you tell the jurors what that is?
The Community Policing Unit, we deal with mostly neighborhood issues, homeless issues, anything outside of the scope of patrol. We'll negotiate things, do community meetings, things of that nature.
And what are your current duties and responsibilities on that Community Policing Unit?
I am in what's referred to as an area officer, so I cover a section of the city when people call in neighborhood complaints or general issues that patrol doesn't have time to deal with. We go deal with those things.
You mentioned starting with the Manchester Police Department in 2012.
Yes.
What did you do for work prior to that?
Prior to that, I was a police officer with the Scottsdale, Arizona Police Department. I was hired there in April of 2005.
Were you working in your official capacity as an officer with the Manchester Police Department on November 29th of 2019?
Yes, I was.
And are you familiar with someone named Adam Montgomery?
Yes, I am.
And can you tell the jurors your familiarity with him?
On that day, I responded to I was dispatched to a traffic accident at South Wilson Street in Vinton involving two vehicles. And Mr. Montgomery identified himself as the driver of one of the vehicles.
Now, you mentioned these reports that you write following your investigation. Did you write a report following your interactions on that day?
I did.
And have you had a chance to review that before you came here to testify?
Yes, I have.
The accident that we're talking about from November 29th of 2019, does that accident stand out to you in your memory?
It does.
Why is that?
Because Mr. Montgomery was involved in another accident a few days later. And in my police career, that's the only time I've had one individual in two accidents within the same week.
Okay, and we'll talk about both of those accidents, but I want to focus on November 29th. And I think you said that stands out to you.
Yes, it does.
Can you walk the jurors through the initial dispatch that you received and your response to the scene?
It was a two-vehicle accident. I arrived. I was working in a patrol capacity that day. I showed up. There were two vehicles at the scene, multiple individuals in one of the vehicles, and there was just one driver in the other vehicle. I went through the standard protocol when I arrived at the location.
And when you say multiple individuals in one of the vehicles, whose vehicle was that?
That was Mr. Montgomery's vehicle.
And were you able to identify the individuals that were in Mr. Montgomery's vehicle?
I did.
And who was in Mr. Montgomery's vehicle?
In Mr. Montgomery's vehicle, I believe Kayla Montgomery identified herself as one of the rear passengers. There was an individual in the front seat. I would need as an adult female in the front seat, I would need to look at my report to refresh my memory of her name.
Do you believe that looking at your report, reviewing your report, would refresh your recollection of
Yes, it would.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Yes, ma'am.
Take your time reviewing if it's been refreshed.
The front passenger identified herself as Tabitha Scott.
And Officer Pensonen, who else, if anyone, did you observe in the vehicle?
There were two children in the vehicle.
Did you obtain their names?
I did obtain their names.
And what were those two children's names?
Again, I would have to look at my report to refresh my memory of those.
Please do so. You can't read from it. You can't read it out loud, but feel free to refresh your recollection. Just look up when you're done.
They were identified as Seamus Montgomery and Declan Montgomery.
Did you note their relative seating locations?
I did.
And what were they?
I believe it was the center passenger and rear right passenger.
Do you know which one was in the center and which one was rear right?
I don't recall which one was where.
Is that noted in your
It should be noted in my report, yes.
Please, if you believe that looking at your report would refresh your recollection, please do so.
Seamus was in the rear middle and Declan was in the rear right.
Did you see any other children in the defendant's vehicle?
I did not.
And did you, during your response, did you actually look inside of the defendant's vehicle?
I don't recall if I looked in the vehicle or not. It was so long ago.
Other than full of people, how would you describe the defendant's vehicle?
The defendant's vehicle, aside from having 5 people in there, there was clutter in the vehicle.
Is that something that you saw?
I did.
So, officer, I want to switch gears. I want to talk about that second accident just several days later. So I want to turn your attention to December 2nd of 2019. Were you working in your official capacity with the Manchester Police Department on December 2nd of 2019?
Yes, I was.
And on that day, did you respond to another accident involving the defendant?
I did.
And can you walk the jurors through your response, how you initially became aware and what you did after getting that information?
I was dispatched, I believe it was on Franklin Street, or in that general area, to a 2-vehicle accident. And again, the same thing. There were only 2 drivers in this accident. I immediately recognized Mr. Montgomery in the vehicle, having dealt with him a few days prior.
And again, did you follow your standard protocol after your response?
I did.
After you arrived at the location?
I did.
And who, if anyone, did you document in the defendant's vehicle on that occasion?
I believe Mr. Montgomery was the only person in the vehicle.
Do you believe that looking at your report might refresh your recollection?
Oh, yes, it would.
Yes.
According to my report, Kayla Montgomery was a passenger in the vehicle.
And during that response, did you note her relative seating location?
She was in the front passenger seat.
On that occasion, did you look inside of the defendant's vehicle?
I don't recall if I looked inside or not.
Did you note anything about the defendant's vehicle?
On this occasion, it was the same vehicle I dealt with the week before. The only thing that I noted about it was the new damage on the vehicle.
And I'm sorry, I want to go back to that November 29th response that you had. Around what time that day did you respond to the scene?
Again, I would have to look at my report to refresh my memory at the exact time. That was approximately 3:53 p.m.
And how about on December 2nd? What time did you arrive on the scene?
Again, I would have to look at my report to get the time that I arrived. That was approximately 10:43 a.m.
If I can have just a moment, Your Honor. No further questions. Thank you, Officer Pentinen. The defense may have some questions for you.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name's Caroline Smith, and I do have a couple of questions for you. The first one involves the December 2nd accident that you were just talking about in 2019. And where was that accident?
I would need to look at my report to get the exact address.
Do you still have it up there?
I have it up here.
Okay, go ahead.
That was at Franklin and Market Street.
And that's right around the clinic at Franklin?
It is in that general area, yes.
Okay. And the one at on 1129, where was that?
That was South Wilson and Vinton Street.
Okay. Is that near a Burger King?
It is not far. I believe approximately half mile, if I were to guess.
Okay. And on the, I don't mean to skip back and forth, so I'll stick with the November 29. You don't have a specific recollection of how you talk to people, right?
Not specifically, no.
Whether who was inside the car, who was outside the car when you talked to them, right?
No.
But if people were inside the car, you probably would have walked up to the car and talked to them, right?
Yes, that's generally what I do.
Okay. And you saw the two boys in the back?
I saw two boys there. I don't remember if they were inside the vehicle or outside of the vehicle.
Okay. And when adults are driving around when anybody is driving around with children in the car, you recall that you were given the ages of the children, right?
Yes.
And one was over a year?
Again, I would have to look at my report for the.
Please do. And I meant to say under a year.
And to note what the dates are, what their birth dates are, and as of the date. Yes, one would be under a year or approximately that age.
And when adults are driving around with a child under one, that child is to be in a baby seat, right?
Yes.
And if the child is not in the baby seat, what happens?
Generally, it's against the law and would be up to the officer's discretion to issue a summons for that or not.
Okay. And the second child was under 3?
Approximately.
And what are the restraints to be on a child under 3?
Also in a car seat.
Okay. And how about a child of 5?
Again, I'm 5 years old. I'm not sure. I would need to look at the exacts, but I believe it's any child under a certain size also would need a car seat.
Okay. And at the very least, I think it's under 12 have to be buckled in a seatbelt.
Yes.
And so you were aware of 2 children, right?
Yes.
And you had no concerns about their restraints, the child seat.
From what I remember, I did not.
By the way, I did say that the 1129 was outside. We said, I believe, outside Vinton and Wilson, the 12-2 was outside the clinic.
Correct.
And the 12-2 outside the clinic was 10:43?
Approximately, yes.
Okay, still morning hours.
Yes.
And the 11:29 was in the afternoon, 3:53, 4-ish?
Correct.
Still light out, right?
For that time of year, yes.
Okay. Now, you also said that you gathered pertinent information about the driver in the car, like the license, registration, insurance.
Correct.
And Mr. Montgomery had a license, right?
He did. He provided me a New Hampshire license.
Okay. And as far as you could tell, it was valid, right?
Yes.
Because otherwise there would have been a problem there too, right?
Yes. Another thing I do is I will have dispatch do a driver's license status of any individuals who are operating the motor vehicles.
Okay. And so then on the accident on the 2nd, there were only people in the front seats of the car, no one in the back seat, right?
That's what I documented. I don't recall the specifics of the vehicle, but that's what I documented.
Okay. And again, whether you talked to the driver inside the car or outside the car, you would have talked to the driver, right?
Yes.
And if the passenger was inside the car, you would have walked up to the passenger side to talk to her, right?
I would speak to him either through the driver's side or depending on the situation, sometimes through the driver's side, sometimes through the passenger side, but I will speak to them directly.
Okay. And you did not see any children on that day, right?
No.
You didn't see any boys in the car?
No. If I did, I would have documented it.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Seating on the, I'm sorry, I'm going back again when I said I wouldn't. On 11:29, you specifically documented the seating?
Correct.
And Seamus was in the middle?
I believe so.
So there would have been you can check your report. I think you documented it, right?
Yes.
And so Declan was on one side, Seamus on the other, and then you would have noticed Kayla or been told that Kayla was on the other side, right?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, we are going to shift back to a coworker of Adam's. So this is a different coworker now that we're going to listen to.
Any objection to that?
Nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Please feel free to have a seat. Mr. Gendron, thank you for. Please go ahead and state your full name and then spell both your first and your last name for the record.
It's Matthew Gendron, Matthew-Gendron.
And Mr. Gendron, what town are you currently living in?
Manchester.
How long have you lived here in Manchester?
About 12 years or so.
Okay. And right now, are you working?
Yes, sir.
What type of work do you do in general?
I work in a restaurant.
How long have you been doing that kind of work?
Most of my life, but I've been at my current job for close to 5 years now.
Let me ask, at one point in 2019, did you ever work at a Dunkin' Donuts?
Yes, sir.
And where was that Dunkin' Donuts?
It's located at Beach Street in Manchester, New Hampshire.
While you were there, did you ever work with somebody by the name of Adam Montgomery?
Yes, sir.
And with regards to Adam Montgomery, do you know who his wife is?
Kayla Montgomery?
Did you meet her there as well?
Yes, sir.
And how long did you work there with Adam Montgomery and Kayla Montgomery?
Probably around a year or so.
How long overall did you work at that Dunkin' Donuts?
I think I worked there 2 years.
Did you get the job, or were you working there when Adam Montgomery started working there, or was he working there when you got there?
He was already employed when I got there.
And what about Kayla Montgomery?
Same.
Same thing? All right. Did you ever hang out with Adam Montgomery?
A few times.
And did you ever friend him on Facebook?
Yes, sir.
Would you send messages back and forth to each other?
Yep.
All right. And back in 2019, about how often would you guys talk with each other?
I try to initiate a conversation every week or so.
Were you still working at Dunkin' Donuts when Adam Montgomery stopped working at Dunkin' Donuts?
Yes.
All right. in general, these particular images, what are these images on?
Of a Facebook chat with myself and Adam Kale.
And is that on your Facebook page?
Correct.
With regards to the conversation that you have there, do you remember that conversation?
Yes.
You remember having looked at those images at the time that you received them?
Yes.
Other than the fact that they're on paper and there's a little red sticker down at the bottom of the first page, any sort of alterations or changes to those images compared to when you saw them when you first got them?
Not to my knowledge.
And are they accurate in terms of the time and date that you remember getting this message from?
Yes, sir.
At this point, Your Honor, I ask for the identification to be stricken from states exhibit 11.
Any objection? I'm sorry, you said no objection. Without objection, thank you. The ID is stricken. It's entered as a full exhibit.
Mr. General, I'm going to go ahead and leave this copy here if for some reason you need to refer to it. But I'd like to draw your attention to the screen. Have you, walk us through this exhibit together so we can understand this message that you got as you testified from the defendant in his Facebook page. So back in, let's go ahead to December 8th of 2019. Were you still working at Dunkin' Donuts on December 8th?
I don't recall. Maybe.
And well, with regards to at that point in time, do you know if? Oh, excuse me. You said you're not too sure if you were
At
working.
the time of these messages, I was at a different restaurant.
You were at a different restaurant. Okay, so you're no longer working with the defendant at Dunkin'
Correct.
Donuts. All right. I'd like to go ahead and draw your attention. You can either look down or look at the screen behind you, and I want to go ahead and draw your attention to page 1 of Exhibit 11. And with regards to that, is this what you're seeing on the screen behind you? Can you just confirm for us that is page 1 of Exhibit 11?
Yes.
Okay. And I'd like to go ahead and ask you about the conversation itself. First of all, what time did you get these messages on, specifically on the 8th? When did they start appearing?
After midnight.
After midnight on the 8th? And specifically, what time did you first get the very first message here? From
12:13 a.m. It says.
12:13 a.m.
Yeah.
Okay. With regards to that particular time, could you go ahead and please read that message for us? The message that you received at 12:13 a.m.
Hey, need help ASAP. Please need a jump and jumper cables ASAP.
Okay. And separate from that, did you get another message right afterwards, or excuse me, shortly thereafter?
Yes.
And what time did you get that second message?
12:58.
Okay. And what was the message that you got then?
It says, I need a jump. My car died. We've been sleeping in our car and our battery just died.
Now, separate from that, did you then start responding back to this Facebook message from Mr. Montgomery?
Yes.
All right. And what did you write?
I said, I don't have any cables.
Okay. And then what's the next message that you received in this conversation?
This is Kayla. Will you bring me to a store to get them? I'll give you gas money. We will literally die tonight.
And with regards to that message, at that point, when it says this is Kayla, who do you believe now has the phone?
I believe it was Kayla. That was a joint account they had together.
Okay. In general, when you received messages from this account, were you able to tell who it was from, whether it was from Adam Montgomery or whether it was from Kayla?
Not until they identified themselves.
Okay. And what about with regards to how they wrote, the type of words that they used? Did you notice a difference?
Not really.
Okay. What's the response that you wrote back after that? You received that message about we will literally die tonight.
I just got home from work and have to get up early for work tomorrow. What's even open and where are you guys?
Okay. So to clarify, at this point when you're writing, you said I don't have cables. Was that true?
Yes.
Okay. So you didn't.
I didn't have cables.
Okay. And when you say when you move on about having to get up early for work tomorrow, you asked where they were. Is that right?
Yeah.
All right. Why did you ask that question?
I was just curious as to where they wanted me to drive all around to at that hour.
Continuing on with the bottom part of page 1 here of the exhibit, I wondered if you could go ahead and what's the response you got to that?
It's okay, Matt. I don't know what it is open. I'm sorry.
That IDKs, I mean, I don't know, or I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah.
Okay. And what did you say back?
It's not your fault. I just don't have cables. It's not so I know what's open.
Okay. And so at that time of night, did you know what was open or not? All right. It has to be a verbal answer.
Oh,
yes
no,
or no.
sir.
I'm sorry, because the microphone's picking up and recording. I wondered if you could go ahead and turn to page 2 now and walk us through the next part of this conversation that you're having. After that, you said you didn't know what was open. What message did you start getting on the account?
I think either if mobile don't have them, the only place is Amherst Walmart. So I know you need to get out early. Have a good night. Sorry.
You said get out early. Is that what was written?
That's what it looks like it was written. There's a lot of typos.
Okay. Certainly, would you say that the typos that you're seeing here is different from what you saw before when you got the message saying that it was from Kayla?
I would assume it's from the same person still.
Okay. Even though the
They
typos.
didn't identify. They changed people. So I'm assuming it's still Kayla.
Okay. And so, what do you respond back when they say, "I'm sorry"?
I said it's okay. Try to have a good night.
Well, let me just. Oh, excuse me. That's right. Let me just try to get to it. You say it's okay. Try to have a good night. Yep. And what's the response that you got back after that?
I'm gonna try. We can die in this weather. We can't. Right. We can just. Really, I can't even read that.
Is it CILD? Are we reading that right? Okay.
And it said, "Hey, I'm at Colonial Village, and Kimmy said she has jumper cables."
Looking at that first line, I'm gonna try. Can we? I'm sorry. I'm gonna try. Can we die in this weather? And then is it we? How does they spell the next word after we?
Looks like CSNT.
Is it fair to assume that might be can't?
Correct.
Okay. Right. We can just. Is that VE?
That's what I got.
Okay. Just V, really, and the CILD. What do you think that word is?
Probably cold.
Really cold. Okay. And then the line afterwards.
Hey, I'm at Colonial Village, and Kimmy said she has jumper cables.
Who's Kimmy? Do you know who Kimmy is?
Kimberly Frayne.
And were you Facebook friends with her?
Yep. I also worked with her as well. Right. The same location.
And with regards to that, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and flip over to page 3 now. And, or excuse me, if you could stay at the bottom of page 2, I apologize, we didn't finish here. You said, can Kimmy jump you? Is that correct?
That's what I said, yeah.
What did they respond?
She don't have a car. That's why I've been messaging everyone.
Okay. And just for clarity's sake, when you said she don't have her car, what was actually spelled?
Was that actually spelled?
Yep.
She don't have GER car. She don't have her car.
Fair to say, though, you interpreted that as her car?
Correct.
And that's why I've been messaging everyone. If you could go to page 3 of that exhibit and kind of take us through how this conversation ended that day. After they said she don't have her car, that's why I've been messaging everyone. What was the next thing that you received, the next message?
So do YIH not want to do that?
What did you interpret that to mean?
Probably mean, do you not want to do that?
And what did you write back?
I don't really feel like running all over the place at this hour of the night. Did you try 24-hour road assistance thing?
What were you suggesting to them when you said 24-hour road assistance?
Like AAA or just one of those type of services, I guess.
Have you ever used that service in the past?
I didn't have it at the time, but I have used it since.
Oh, that's what I meant. I'm sorry. Have used it since. And did you find that they do have that ability to be able to jump a car?
Yeah.
And if you could go ahead and take us through the next part of your conversation here. What did they respond after you suggested that they try to find somebody who could do the jump service?
It's not our car, Matt. Our car died today. I'm assuming the word his friend is letting us stay in his. It's all good, Matt. Don't worry about it. I just don't want to freeze tonight. I've messaged everyone else.
So, again, some of those words misspelled?
Correct.
And when you were just reading for us, is that your interpretation of those misspellings?
Yes, sir.
All right. What did they say after saying we've messaged everyone else?
NOOBE, I'm assuming means nobody has cables or nobody has their cars. Okay. Spelled cats.
Spelled cats, but interpreted as cars.
Correct.
Okay. With regards to that, what did you say back to when they were said nobody has cables and nobody has cats? What did you write back?
I get all that. Roadside assistants can jump a car. They have helped me before. They don't ask for proof of ownership.
So when you write that back to them, what's the response that you got?
Yeah, no one of us has insurance. Don't worry about it, man.
And what time was that final message that day?
1:53 a.m.
In frame. Let me ask, did you say, I don't know, maybe a month later in January of 2020, did you have any other Facebook messages from Adam Montgomery or any other discussions with Adam Montgomery about what happened that night?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. At any point in time, did you ever, was there ever a conversation with Adam Montgomery with regards to you not responding that night?
Also not to my memory.
Not to your memory?
It's been a while.
Okay. If I could just have a moment, please, Your Honor. All right, Mr. Gendron, I have one final question for you with regards to the time that you were asked to go ahead and provide a jump, and you had this conversation with the defendant. With regards to that, at that time, did you know where he was living?
I did not.
And were you ever made aware that he was homeless at that time?
That was the first time I found out.
Okay. When did you find out?
Well, during that message that they're living in their car, I had no idea.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Gendron. I don't have any further questions for you. I believe defense counsel will have a few.
Okay.
I do not have questions.
You may sit down.
Thank you.
So this was interesting in that we saw text messages directly from the defendant, and a lot of them had many typos, as we saw. Some of those typos, like, you know, writing the word worry with an IE at the end, could reveal some evidence of lack of education, but a lot of those typos were so wonky that I would argue that it more shows his state of mind in the moment. I mean, with autocorrect, you would think those would get corrected. So the fact that they didn't, I feel like, reveals his state of mind in his way of communicating. And to think that, you know, they were in their car all the time and things like that, it's very, very likely he was under the influence, which is, you know, we're aware that it is a problem in this case, but it's really sad to just kind of see it through the lens of his messages to his coworkers. I also just wanted to say that it's these poor coworkers, you know, getting dragged into Adam's messy life and, you know, always, hey, come jumpstart my car and this and that. You know, I feel bad that they got roped in. This guy seems like he tried to build a relationship with him and a friendship and would reach out to him on a weekly basis. But honestly, he got more than he bargained for there. So we are going to move on to an officer who specialized in cybersecurity and was one of the ones that seemed to have searched Adam's car. He's going to go through a lot of the evidence in regards to pictures and things like that of Adam's vehicle when it was wrecked.
We'd ask for the witness to be excused, please. Thank you, sir. Please feel free to have a seat. Mr. Chuckers, we're being recorded here today. Would you please state your full name and spell both your first and last name for the record?
Yes, sir. Joseph Tucker, Joseph, and Tucker.
Okay. And Mr. Tucker, are you currently employed?
I am, yes, sir.
Okay. And where do you work?
The Catholic Medical Center.
How long have you been working for them?
I just started back up in January.
Okay. And what do you do for them?
I'm the cybersecurity manager.
And prior to working for a Catholic Medical Center as the cybersecurity manager, where did you work?
Solution Health.
Solution Help?
Health.
Okay. Yes. And what was the time that you were working for them?
April 2022 until January of 2023.
And prior to that, and I will ask you to just, if you can even move a little bit closer to the microphone, I'll have you speak up just a little bit so I can hear you. Thank you. With regards to working for Secure Health, before that, where did you work?
Manchester Police Department, sir.
And again, I'm going to have you just kind of keep your voice up a little bit if you can.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. How long did you work for the Manchester Police Department?
Since 2015, so 8 years-ish.
Roughly that long?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And were you working there in January of 2022?
Yes.
All right. I'd like to ask you a couple different questions about when you were a Manchester police officer. First of all, were you a full-time certified officer?
I was, yes, sir.
Okay. And in January of 2022, were you asked to assist other officers in doing a search of a 2010 Chrysler Sebring with New Hampshire registration 436-8206?
Yes, sir.
Where was that search done?
At the Manchester Police Department, and we have a vehicle processing bay, which is right outside of where the Sally Port is.
I imagine we might hear some testimony later on about this bay. So could you go ahead and describe it for the jury, please?
Sure. The bay itself, you can only access it from the secured back lot where we park most of the police vehicles. There is a 2 garage Sally Port. The left side used to have like tactical vehicles, and then the right side is where we would drop prisoners off or transport prisoners. Just to the right of that is a single bay garage door that opens up. And then there's also a side door to access it. Both are secure. You need your ID has to get in. And then inside of that bay, it could probably fit a full-size pickup if you took the pickup and went sideways.
So it's a good sized garage.
Yeah. And then we had tools in there for disassembling vehicles, and then we had evidence supplies down there. So if it was inclement weather or it was a long search, you could utilize the bay.
Okay. Let me ask you, what was your role during this search of this 2010 Chrysler Sebring with the New Hampshire registration 436-8206?
I was Detective O'Leary. He's now Sergeant O'Leary. He was we joked around and called him the incident commander, but he was the guy that was in charge of all the crime scene processing. So I was more or less there to assist him.
And what were some of the things that you did to assist him, just generally?
Generally, collecting of evidence items, the log, if there was any pictures. We were blue starring, which is a process to try to obtain any blood samples from the vehicle. So it sounds silly, but you have to turn the lights off for that. So I was the light guy, things like that.
The light guy, so literally turn the lights off, turn the lights on?
Yeah, and then you'd have to set the camera for 30 seconds, 60 seconds exposure to take the photo. So I would have a flashlight just so we could still navigate a little bit without the direct light.
So were you the one administering the blue star, or that was somebody else?
That was Detective O'Leary.
All right. Let me ask you, what roles do initials play at the Manchester Police Department when you're labeling evidence?
Generally speaking, when I initialed something, it was an item that I collected.
Okay. And what were your initials?
JMT.
So if you collected an item today, if you were going to collect this tissue box, and this was going to be an item of evidence that you went ahead and entered in at the Manchester Police Department, how would you have labeled this? If this is your first item of the day?
Sure. The box itself would have been JMT1, and then any items inside the box, like tissues, would be JMT1-A-B, and subsequently.
Okay. Oh, I could see that. So something like, let's say,
a backpack.
Like a backpack.
JMT1, and then if you have an item in the backpack, you want a 1A, signifying that item A came from 1.
When you were assisting in doing the search of this car, were there other officers there to help you as well? Besides just yourself and Sergeant O'Leary?
Initially, there was a lot of in and out, a lot of people checking in.
All right. And with regards to the items of physical items of potential evidence that you collected, do you remember how many that you directly took and initialed in the way that you just described for us?
8.
8.
Yes, sir.
So that would have been what, JMT 1 through JMT 8?
Yes, sir.
All right. Was one of those JMT 7 a pink toothbrush?
Yes, sir.
What's that, Mr. Tucker?
Yes, sir.
Generally, in regards to photographs, you recognize those photographs?
Yes, sir.
What are they photographs of?
This, this photograph.
Yes, sir. Let me go ahead and I can assist you on it. With regards to, let's go ahead and start with State's Exhibit 10. What's that a photo of?
This is the photo.
I'm just going to keep it down low. We haven't finished it.
Okay,
yet, so
sorry.
Let me ask you this. I'll just go one at a time. For State's Exhibit 10, do you recognize this? I'm sorry. Apologize. I do upside down. State's Exhibit 5. Do you recognize that photograph?
Yes, sir.
All right. What is that photograph of?
It's the evidence processing bay that I was describing earlier with the silver Chrysler Sebring in there.
The one that you searched?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And other than the fact that it has a red sticker on it, does that picture show the car as it appeared to you at different times during your search of the car?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm going to put that one to the side for right now. Separate from that, I'd like to go ahead and ask you about State's Exhibit 4 on this particular one. Do you recognize that photograph?
No.
Okay. With regards to that particular vehicle, do you recognize the vehicle?
It looks like the same vehicle, but without seeing the back, it's hard to say. But
let me ask you, I'm going to direct your attention to the top right-hand side of the windshield in that particular vehicle, and then have you make a comparison with regards.
Sorry, I can't hear it.
Okay.
Sure. I apologize. Officer Tucker, what I'd like to do is have you go ahead and look, if you would please, at the top left-hand side of the windshield on State's Exhibit 4 in comparison to 10, and look at the two windshields as a comparison between the two.
Yes, sir. It's got the same numbers.
Okay. And with regards to, also, I'm going to have you look at the lower left part of that windshield underneath the hood on State's Exhibit 4 and compare it to the lower left part of the windshield on State's Exhibit 10.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And do those particular numbers match?
Yes, sir.
Please ask you about the next exhibit. See, yep. Going to this is the State's Exhibit 6. Do you recognize that photo?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What do you recognize it to be?
It's the same vehicle, but it's the driver's side, front and rear of the vehicle, but the doors have been removed.
The doors have been removed?
Yes, sir.
And let me ask you, when you were searching this car initially, was there anything that was inside the car?
Yeah, like all the car parts and stuff. Sir.
All the car parts?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And let me have you, and are those reflected in that photograph?
Yes, sir.
All right. If you could go to the next photo then. I'm referring to State's Exhibit, excuse me, is it upside down? I apologize. State's Exhibit 7? For State's Exhibit 7, do you recognize that photo?
Yes, sir.
What is it a photo of?
The front of the vehicle, the driver's seat, passenger seat, but looking in on the driver's seat.
So looking in the driver's seat. So where the steering wheel is?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And does that photo show the car as you saw it when you were searching the car?
Yes, sir.
All right. If you could go to the next exhibit, please. It should be State's Exhibit 8.
Yes, sir.
What's that a photograph of?
Same context, except from the passenger or from the driver's front, it's the driver's rear.
All right, so move from so right behind the driver's seat.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And does that photograph also accurately reflect the vehicle as you saw it the day that you helped out with the search?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the next photograph. And that particular one State's Exhibit 9, I believe?
Yes, sir.
All right, what's that a photograph of?
It's the trunk of the vehicle, sir.
The trunk of the vehicle?
Yes, sir.
If you could please, I'd like to direct your attention from 9 and also direct it to State's Exhibit 103, 4. Have you look at those two? Do you recognize, let's start with State's Exhibit 103. Do you recognize that photo?
Yes, sir.
What's that a photo of?
It's the trunk of the vehicle, but with more items in it.
Okay. Is that how the vehicle initially appeared, or did you fill it with items, or did you empty it from items?
No, we emptied it, sir.
Okay. And does it also show the registration for the car there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. State's Exhibit, the next one there, should be 104?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what is that a photo of?
Just another close-up of the trunk area with all the items in it.
Okay. What kind of items are there?
It's like steering components. Looks like the front CV shaft and the cross member.
Okay. A cross member?
Yeah, like the front frame, like the cross member.
Oh, okay. Okay. Working our way around the car, I'd ask you to look at State's Exhibit 105 and see if you can tell us a little bit about that particular photo. What's that a photo of?
The right rear, the passenger side rear, with the door open, looking in.
Did it also have car parts in it, that side of the car?
Yes, sir.
Can you see that in the photograph?
Yes, sir.
And is that accurate from when you saw it, when you helped with the search?
Yes, sir.
And if you could go to the next smaller exhibit there, yes. That's
106.
106. What's that a photograph of?
The passenger front seat.
So now we've worked our way around the car to the passenger front seat?
Yes, sir, right front.
And does that appear as you saw it when you helped do the search?
Yes, sir.
What were some of the items that were in that seat?
More car parts, broken glass, snow, just trash.
And does that accurately reflect how it appeared when you did the search?
Yes.
Thank you. One last question for you, separate from these. The last one I believe that we haven't talked about in regards is State's Exhibit 10. Could you tell us what that's a photograph of?
Pink toothbrush.
Okay. And do you recognize that toothbrush?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How do you recognize it?
It was in the back of the Sebring, sir.
Right. In the back of this car?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And is that a toothbrush that you seized and put into evidence?
Yes.
Okay. And you remember what was the initials that you gave for that one?
JMT7.
JMT7.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. With regards to the photograph, does it look, other than the fact that it has a red label on it and somebody on that photograph has put their initials, other than that, any sort of changes or alterations to it from how you remember it looking when you collected it?
No, sir.
At this time, Your Honor, the state, I'd like to take these back in, please. The state will move to go ahead and start the investigation. Specifically, Mr. Tucker, I had gone through a series of photographs with you just before we took our mid-morning break. Do you see that same stack of photographs in front of you now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Again, what I'm going to do is I'd like to be able to ask you questions about these photos, and I'll go in roughly that order, and be able to, you can either look at the photographs in front of you or feel free to look at the screen behind you, whichever one's going to be easier. And I've got a series of questions for you about how you conducted the search and the appearance of the car. All right?
Yes, sir.
All right. I'd like to go ahead and start with State's Exhibit 103. And I wondered if you could go ahead and describe this photograph for us.
Yes, sir. This is the trunk of the Sebring with the car parts in it.
Okay. And you said the car parts in it. Could you just kind of generally point with your hands where those are again?
This is all part of the car part.
Okay. And do you know where those car parts came from?
I believe they came from the front of the vehicle.
Okay.
I believe that's like a CV shaft. Has to do with power to the wheels in the front of the vehicle, but I'm not a mechanic.
Okay. And with regards to the license plate, can we see the license plate on the car?
Yes, sir.
And could you read the license plate for us?
436-8206.
Moving around to State's Exhibit 5, what are we looking at here?
That's the front of the vehicle, specifically the driver's side.
Okay. And is this also, again, how the car looked that day when you searched it?
Yes, sir.
And so I guess from that question, is this the bay that we were talking about, the evidence bay that you can do the search in?
Yes.
Okay. Can't help but notice it doesn't have a wheel. Did it have any wheels?
No, I don't think it did, sir.
Okay.
But I wasn't there when they took it from the junkyard. This is the first time I saw it. Was I came into work and was instructed to go down and help Detective O'Leary.
All right.
Sir, I'm gonna need you to speak. Maybe slide your chair over a little
Yes,
so
ma'am.
that you're speaking into the microphone.
Yes,
because
sorry.
This is recorded and we do need to get your voice. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. also had you do to look on the windshield specifically of the car, and we talked a little bit about it. I'd like to switch now to State's Exhibit 4. This particular car, is this the car that the photo that I had you make a comparison of that windshield?
Yes, sir.
All right. And showing State's Exhibit 5 and 4 together, 4 being on the bottom and 5 being on the top. Do you remember the letters and the numbers that I had you point to in the top right-hand corner of the windshield?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And do we have those both highlighted here on the screen?
Yes, sir.
And do you remember me asking the question about the numbers indicated on the lower left-hand side of the windshields?
Yes, sir.
And do we have those also highlighted here on the screen?
Yes, sir.
So with regards to this car, we're looking at the same car here between these two photos, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Working our way around the car, and I'd like to go ahead and kind of move in a counterclockwise fashion from looking at the hood, moving now around to the driver's side. Can you go ahead and point out for us, when you said that there were car parts in the car, show us where those car parts are, and do you recognize any of those parts?
Yes, sir. So the driver's seat, there are car parts, and then the back passenger seat had more car parts in them.
Okay.
The floorboard.
And the floorboard as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay. With regards to those car parts, let's go ahead and kind of zoom in, if we would, to the passenger area, to the driver's seat. So zooming in to that same photograph here of State's Exhibit 6. Can you see those car parts a little bit better?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to go directly to one seat and then the other. So if we could start with the driver's seat, looking at State's Exhibit 7. Can you point out where some of these parts are that you're talking about?
Sure. Yes, sir. This looks like the bezel. You should go up here where you're looking at your instruments.
Mm-hmm.
These look like some underbody parts, like that might be a suspension component, but again, I'm not 100%, but they're definitely car parts.
Okay. And moving to State's Exhibit 8, if we go into the back seat, right behind the driver's seat, what are we looking at here?
More car parts, sir.
Okay.
This looks like it might be usually an air filter box.
Mm-hmm.
Not 100%. And this looks like it might be a fender well, like a up in the inner fender.
Okay. And is it fair to say from seeing here, we don't see a driver's side rear tire as well?
No, sir.
Moving now kind of to the trunk area, if you could, I'd like to go back to State's Exhibit 103. You already identified this photo for us as being that particular trunk of the Chrysler Sebring with the car parts in it. I'd like to, if you could, describe for the jury as we look at specifically State's Exhibit 104, what was the condition of these parts that you were looking at?
Just like that, they look like old car parts. I mean, I didn't take the car parts out and see if they fit the car, but I assume that they belonged to the vehicle.
Was there generally, were there any kind of fluids that were coming from any of these parts that you noticed?
Not in the trunk, but there was a liner, so it's hard to say.
Okay. What about in other areas of the car?
Yes.
There were?
Yeah, I believe so. Like the passenger seat, I think the right front had like wetness.
Okay, so I really need you to keep
yes,
your
ma'am.
voice up. It's a big room and everybody needs to hear you.
Yes, ma'am. Sorry.
Thank you.
I believe the right front area had wetness.
Okay. Thank you for that. I'm going to zoom in. Did you help remove these parts from the vehicle to help do the search?
Yes, sir.
Where did they go?
I think we laid out a piece of big parchment paper, like brown, with the same material, like a Hannaford's bag, like when you go to the grocery store and you get paper bags.
Yes.
Just a big roll of that. We laid it out, and they go on that roll.
Okay. Did you help, or did you watch as the car parts got emptied from the trunk?
I helped, I believe. Yeah.
Okay. And I'd like to show you now State's Exhibit 9. Zooming in on this portion of State's Exhibit 104 in the back corner. Can you tell if there's any particular of a color that's in that photo?
Color, sir?
Yeah, any color that doesn't look like a car part. And feel free to use the screen or the photograph if you wish.
Are you referencing the kind of light blue?
Look light blue to you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Once you emptied out the car, were you able to see what that light blue thing was as we look at State's Exhibit 9?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what was it?
T-shirt.
A T-shirt?
Yes, sir.
Right. Just and with that trunk emptied, excuse me, apologize. With that trunk emptied, were you able to look farther to the back of the trunk?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And from there, what were the different items that you saw?
I think it was all clothing, and then the toothbrush. You can see a little bit of it right there.
Right where?
Right here, sir.
And that's inside that circle?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Were you able to see it? Let's say you can see it here from the photo, I take it. Right?
Yes, sir.
Right. Zooming in on State's Exhibit 9,
Can you show us again where it is that you see it?
Yes, sir.
Right there?
Yes, sir.
And showing again State's Exhibit 10. This is the toothbrush that you recovered from that trunk?
Yes, sir.
On that toothbrush, you testified earlier on in direct that it was identified that you logged in as JMT7, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to hand you what's been marked State's Exhibit 66 for identification purposes only. Just go ahead and look at the label and feel the bag. Do you recognize that particular packaging as well as the person inside?
Yes, sir.
What is that packaging? How do you recognize the packaging?
It's the brown bag that I placed it into.
And does it have your initials on it, JMT7?
Yes, sir.
At this point, I'm going to borrow a pair of scissors and look at the wings to his own. Mr. Tucker, since we are talking about a toothbrush, I wonder if you would be willing
Yes,
to
sir.
put on a pair of gloves for us and be able to open that bag. And then you're going to put it on the second glove. Can you please tell me very well?
So most of the time when you're processing crime scenes, there's a lot of evidence, and you put on a fresh pair of gloves every time you collect the evidence. And if you don't have double gloves, your hands become very sweaty, and it becomes very difficult to put on a fresh pair of gloves. So it's just easier, especially if you're doing blood swabs and things of that nature. But that's how I was always taught. So that's how I do it. Yes, sir.
Please go ahead and use those scissors to open it.
Do you have a preference on where?
I would say, ask, please, you please go ahead and help me in the area where there isn't a leak.
Okay.
Maybe on the slide.
Yes, sir.
What do you recognize?
The toothbrush from the vehicle.
Right, without objection. All right, the ID is stricken, and it is entered as a full exhibit.
Please go ahead and show us the toothbrush. And
For the purpose of,
just to be able to show the front side of the toothbrush, I don't know if it the back of that goes.
yes, you may do that.
See the front, but it can't see the back.
That's fine.
Thank you, Mr. Tucker. If you could please retake the stand. Thank you. And Mr. Tucker, let me hold the bag open. You could go ahead and place that back in there. Hold on just a moment. That's the only item we're going to ask you to look at, so I'm going to
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Tucker, moving on around the car, out of the trunk now, I'd like to go over towards the passenger side, if we could. We'll start with the rear passenger side. Looking at State's Exhibit 105 here, can you describe what we can see in this photograph?
Yes, sir. More car parts on the seat, and then some trash items, and looks like a water bottle on the passenger side floorboard.
And I see here that we've got a door on this side.
Yes, sir.
All right. And on the previous side, on the driver's side, were there any doors there?
No, sir.
Moving on from this particular one then to State's 106, could you please describe what we're seeing here and what part of the car?
It's the right front, the passenger side front. Looks like the headlight is on the floorboard, and maybe a reservoir for like washer fluid, something of that nature, and some snow.
And some snow. Can you point out where the snow is?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. And that headlight, the reservoir, the snow, all of those were there when you saw the car in that garage bay, correct?
Yes, sir.
None of those were placed there by officers to your knowledge.
Not to my knowledge.
Let me ask you, with regards to some of the other evidence that you looked at and collected on this particular item, this particular car, separate from the toothbrush, were there also a series of swabs that you took in the trunk?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And how many of those swabs did you take?
4.
4?
Yes,
and how were those labeled? Your initials again?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And it was just 1, 2, 3, 4? Or?
Yes, sir. JMT 1, 2, 3, and 4.
4. Okay. Those particular swabs, could you go ahead and describe for the jury how you collected swabs? You talked about it a moment ago when you showed us how instinctually you use 2 gloves. When you do these swabs in the trunk, how do you collect those?
So for swabs, when it comes to blood, if it's not wet, so if the blood's not wet or the material's not wet, urine, whatever it is, if it's dry, we have sterile water. We take it, we pour it into the cap.
Mm-hmm.
Each cotton swab contains 2 in the package, the container. So you glove up. Usually, I would write all the details on the box. There was a little cotton swab box. So I'd write, it's folded, you assemble it, so it's easier to write on it before. So you'd write JMT1, set it up, date, time, all the information, put on your gloves, do the water, get everything ready. And then at that time, because we were using Blue Star in the trunk, there was kind of like a limited amount of time because you have to have the lights off to see the area that you're going to collect. So you'd spray the Blue Star, it would illuminate, you could see that area, and then you had to turn the lights on and collect it. So I was there waiting, ready with the swab ready to go.
I see. So to make sure I understand this right, you're not necessarily administering the Blue Star, but you've got the swabs that you've opened up. Are each one of these swabs, the water that you put together, the boxes, are each one of those sterile before you open them to take a swab?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And is that also very important for you for taking a swab, to double glove and to make sure you're using sterile materials?
Yes.
Those 4 swabs and the toothbrush, are you aware whether or not those were sent on to a laboratory for examination?
I believe the toothbrush was.
Okay.
But I wasn't aware at the time. I assumed everything that we were doing was going to end up in a lab.
I can have just a moment, please, Your Honor. Mr. Tucker, I've got one last question I want to ask you. The trunk liner itself, with regards to the 4 swabs that were taken, did you also collect, I believe you said at the very beginning, there were 8 evidence items that you took. Could you please tell us what JMT8 was? What was the last thing that you cut out?
I don't remember.
Okay. If you had a chance to look at a report written from the search that day, do you think that might refresh your recollection as to what the 8th item was?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Tucker, I'm going to go ahead and hand you a copy of what's been marked, just a date stamp, page 111. I'm going to direct your attention down at the...
I'm going to need you to raise your voice so everybody can hear you, please.
I apologize. Mr. Tucker, I'm going to go ahead and hand you what's been marked Discovery page 111, and I'm going to direct your attention down to the bottom of the page. First of all, after having a chance to read through that document, I'm going to ask, is that a write-up of what the search was that you were a part of for these photographs and for your taking of evidence?
Yes, sir.
And I'm going to have, my question for you is going to be, what was the 8th and last thing that you collected? I'm going to have you said you didn't remember. I'm going to let you go ahead and refresh your recollection. If it's refreshed, let me know. Just look up when you're done.
Yes, sir. It was part of...
Oh, I'll take that back.
Yes, sir. Sorry.
That's all right. And do you recall now what JMT8 was, that last thing?
Yes, sir.
What was it?
A piece of the trunk liner.
Piece of the trunk liner?
Yes, sir.
So, how did you get or recover that piece of the trunk liner?
We cut it.
You cut it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What did you use to cut it?
I don't remember.
And then after it was cut, first of all, you have shown us what you do with gloves and try to present and collect things in a sterile manner. Would you have done that for trying to collect what JMT8 was, the cutting of the trunk liner?
Yes, sir.
And would you have logged it into evidence the same way you did the other ones, JMT1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Tucker, I don't have any further questions for you. I believe defense counsel will have a few.
Yes, sir.
Good morning, Detective. I don't believe we've met, but I'm Jamie Brooks with Public Defender, and I represent Mr. Montgomery. I'm also going to ask you some questions about that search you conducted with then Detective, now Sergeant O'Leary. You understand?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and this search was on January 1st. Your participation in the search was on January 1st, 2022.
Yes, sir.
And it was the Chrysler Sebring, right?
Yes, sir.
And it was already in the Manchester Police Department bay when you saw it.
Yes, sir.
The pictures that were shown showed what were like the guts or the parts of the vehicle inside, right?
Yes, sir.
But eventually, those items were all removed from the interior of the vehicle.
I think so. It wasn't by me.
You mentioned there being, I don't think you used the word butcher paper, but there was paper that O'Leary put down, correct?
I don't know if it was O'Leary, but there was paper down, yes, sir.
Okay. And the purpose of the paper being down was to put the parts of the car that were in the interior on the ground.
Yes, sir.
Because not only were you looking for items such as toothbrushes, but you were also looking for latent bloodstains, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you mentioned Blue Star. Blue Star is a latent bloodstain reagent.
Yes, sir. Yes.
It reacts with hemoglobin.
Yes.
It can detect the presence of blood that cannot be seen by the naked eye.
Correct.
It can detect blood that has been cleaned up.
Yes, sir.
It can detect minute amounts.
Yes, sir.
And Blue Star was applied to the entirety of the exterior of the vehicle.
That I don't know. I wasn't there for that.
You weren't there for that?
No, sir.
Were you there for but you were there for the collection of swabs, right?
For the trunk, sir.
Just for the trunk?
Yes, sir.
All the same, you were there for when the Blue Star was applied to the exterior of the vehicle.
I don't remember that. I remember the trunk.
So, are you aware of Blue Star being applied to the exterior of the vehicle?
Not that I can remember.
And what about the interior of the vehicle?
The trunk, yeah.
The state just had you look at a report.
Yes, sir.
Correct? And that's from the state's discovery?
Yes, sir.
Date stamp 111 through 114, state's discovery?
If you say so.
Do you still have that report up there, Detective?
No, sir.
If I may. Permission to approach?
Yes.
Thank you. Do you recognize this document, Detective?
I do, yes.
And you indicated you could not recall the extent of the use of Blue Star to the vehicle?
I remember the trunk, sir.
But you don't remember any other portions?
No.
Would it help you to look at that report?
Yes, but this isn't my report.
This is the same report that the state just provided you to refresh your recollection?
Right, but this report was written by Brian O'Leary. So he documented the items that I found.
Okay. Okay. Do you have any specific recollection of your participation on January 1st of 2022?
Yeah, I remember going down. I remember helping Brian Blue Star the trunk. I remember helping collect the samples. I remember collecting the items from the trunk. I don't remember doing much more than that for the vehicle.
So for you believe it was just the trunk?
Yes, sir. For the most part, yeah.
Well, while we're at it, let's go ahead and talk about the trunk then. So Blue Star emits a reaction to the hemoglobin, right, by chemiluminescence?
Right, it's like a neon green looking color, like neon green, neon blue.
Some people say blue.
Yeah.
Light blue.
Right.
And your role in this was to make sure that the lighting was correct?
Yes, sir.
So it doesn't have to be pitch black for Blue Star to work, right?
No, but you want darkness for the camera.
You want dim light.
Right.
And was part of your role to make sure that the camera was functioning?
No. Detective O'Leary set that camera up on the tripod and had all the settings. You had to use specific settings, like shutter length that it's open for, type of thing.
And you were just ready with the swabs.
Yes. And then,
and what you were waiting for was to see a reaction, right?
Correct.
And it would manifest itself with a light blue color.
Right.
It's a light blue color that would last for roughly 30 to 60 seconds.
Yeah, it's not very long.
But that 30 to 60-second reaction would suggest the presence of blood.
Yes, sir.
Blood that the naked eye cannot see.
Correct.
Blood that could have been cleaned up.
Correct.
So when there was that reaction, you would take those swabs, right, and get samples
Right.
from that area that was illuminated.
Correct.
And you mentioned 2 swabs. One swab would be used to later provide to the state forensic laboratory.
Right.
The second swab you would use for a hemistick, right?
It depends. I think the second swabs in this case, I just use it for the next sample.
Okay. Let's talk about swabs you collected. JMT1, would that be something that you collected?
Yes.
And what was that? Do you recall?
No.
Would it help you to look at something to be able to recall that?
The report, yes.
Feel free to do so and just look up when you're done.
Yes, sir.
So JMT1, what is that?
So you want me to describe what's in the report?
From your recollection, if you like, or I can just ask you questions about it at this point. It was a DNA swab that you took, right?
Right.
And it was a swab of an area that was positive for Blue Star, correct?
Right.
And it was by a piece of insulation.
I can't remember. I remember the trunk, and I remember we sprayed the Blue Star, lights went off. You see the areas that reacted, and then we took a photograph, and then we would look at the photograph after and compare, and then take the sample from that area.
So a swab was used to tame a sample, and was hemosticks also used on JMT1?
I don't recall that.
Fair to say, though, that the process, this isn't the first time that you've been involved in the Blue Star collection process.
It might be. There's one other time that I know of.
Okay.
That was over on Guilford Ave. I just don't remember if this happened before that.
But in terms of your recollection of the protocol or the proper procedure, if there were any reaction, positive reaction to the Blue Star, a sample would be collected, right?
Right.
So JMT1 reflected a swab from an area of the trunk that tested positive for hemoglobin. Let's talk about JMT2. Do you recall what that is?
From reading the report, it says in a trunk by a candy wrapper.
And this was a swab you took because the item tested positive, reacted positively to the Blue Star mist.
Right.
JMT4, that's also a swab that you took?
Yes, sir.
And this was also due to a reaction to the application of Blue Star in the trunk?
Yes.
This was in a bumper crease area by the rubber gasket?
I don't remember.
You talk about this on direct, JMT8. Do you remember, again, what that was from?
I remember the carpet, the trunk liner. I don't remember what part tested positive.
Do you know if it was the top or the bottom?
I don't, sir.
But in any event, because that area tested positive, and it was probably something you couldn't really swab.
Right.
So because you couldn't swab it, you still wanted to make sure that you collected it.
Yes, sir.
And that's why you cut out a portion of it.
Right.
The portion that tested positive.
Yes.
So again, your understanding of the procedure is that if something tests positive for Blue Star, it's documented, right, in the form of the camera that's taking pictures.
Yes.
It's also documented by the collection of a sample from that area, right?
Yes.
In the form of a swab.
Right. Yes.
It's also documented in a police report.
Yes.
A police report that oftentimes ends up in discovery, like this one, right?
Yes, sir.
Like the report that you're looking at from Detective O'Leary.
Yes, sir.
So, Detective, I'm just trying to figure out why you only remember the trunk. Is it because that was the only area where there was the positive reaction for Blue Star on the vehicle?
No, I think that's just the only area that I helped with.
And to the best of your recollection, you don't know how many days of processing the Sebring took?
No, sir.
You were just there for one day?
Yes, sir.
And that would be January 1st,
Right.
2022.
I was in and out a lot, sir, but the day in question, yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any further?
Yes, sir.
Let me ask you a favor. You do not spray the blue star in this particular case, correct?
No, sir.
And you asked about training and experience with Blue Star. How many times had you applied Blue Star in the past at crime scenes to try to discover evidence?
I can't remember if Guilford Ave happened before. I sprayed some there. A lot of the reason why I think I was involved in this was to learn that process, to see Detective O'Leary do it and assist him with it.
So at the time that you're assisting with this process, how much did you know about Blue Star? You asked a lot of questions about protocols and procedures and chemoluminescence. Did you know about all of that at the time that you were assisting?
I was given very, very simple instructions that it'll glow and that there is a potential that they could be blood.
Have you ever mixed up the reagents to use at a crime scene?
No.
Have you ever read the directions that are necessary before you mix up those reagents?
No.
With regards to Blue Star, what it's good for and not good for, are you aware, or do you know whether it can cause a false negative or a false positive response?
I was told it can react with rust.
It can react with rust?
Yes, sir.
Still the photos?
Yes, sir.
Just a quick question. No, I'll just take State's Exhibit 104. That's State's Exhibit 104 with registration.
I think it's 103.
So excuse me, 103. 103. 104, please. 104?
Yes, sir.
You think that it might be after rust?
Yes, sir.
And the swabs that are taken, where do those swabs go?
I put them into the cardboard container, the swab container.
And what was your understanding of where they would be sent?
The state lab.
State lab. Thank you. No further questions.
Sir.
Thank you.
This may have been one of the very few occasions that you were involved with the Blue Star application process, yet you still understood that the goal was to over-collect, correct, and not under-collect?
Right, yes, sir.
So if there was any kind of a reaction, you made sure that was your job there, was to collect it, right?
Right.
So that it could later be determined if it was a true positive, if it was the result of interaction with blood, or from something else, correct?
Yes, sir.
And when you were there, whatever your participation was, you made sure that you were collecting anything that reacted to the application of the spray.
Right. Not every, there were some areas that were very, very, very faint that when Detective O'Leary and I looked at it, we said that clearly was like a rust seam or something of that nature, so we didn't collect those. But anything else, yes.
And Detective O'Leary, to your knowledge, was very familiar with the application of Blue Star. I'll rephrase. You indicated that you had only, this was your first or maybe second time?
Yes, sir.
And that was part of the reason why you were there, right?
Yes, sir.
Was to learn from somebody who did know about the application of Blue Star.
Correct.
I think that was.
That wraps up this officer's testimony. We are now going to finish off with a friend/acquaintance of Adam. I'm not sure exactly the depth of their relationship, but they definitely knew each other, interacted. And again, this guy is the one that owns the blue Audi. So I'm assuming this is going to be the blue Audi that Adam broke down in at some point. So whether he was given it to borrow the vehicle or there was some other method of him obtaining this vehicle, hopefully we will find out.
Any objection? No objection. All right, you may sit down. You are excused.
How are you doing today, Mr. Badero?
All right.
Can you start by stating and spelling your full name for the record?
My name is Anthony Bodero, ANTHONY BODERO.
And sorry, we're just getting set up, Mr. Badero. I apologize.
Okay, take your time. Sure.
Mr. Badero, what's your date of birth?
August 30th of 1973.
And how far did you go in school?
High school. 11th grade.
11th grade. What's the current city that you reside in?
Manchester, New Hampshire.
And how long have you lived here in Manchester?
13, 14 years.
Mr. Badero, are you familiar with an area in Manchester called the Colonial Village Apartments?
Yes, sir.
And how are you familiar with that area?
I used to reside at the residence here.
And again, Mr. Badero, we're making a record, so I'm just going to ask, there's a little microphone in front of you. I'm just going to ask that you speak into that and as loud as you can.
I used to reside at Colonial Village.
How long did you live in Colonial Village for?
Lived there for like 4 months at one time, and then like another 4 or 5 months after that.
And what were the periods that you lived there? What years?
I lived there from July of 2019 to, I would say, I think it was March of the following year. Yes, March of 2020.
And who did you live there with in that period that you just mentioned, the July 2019 to March 2020?
I lived with a friend of mine.
And what's your friend's name?
Her name is Tanya Clement.
And what were the circumstances? What was the arrangement that you had with Tanya, that living situation?
We would share the bills for the rent of the apartment.
While you were living there during that period that we're discussing, so not the later time, but the July to March, did you own a vehicle?
Yes, sir.
And can you tell these jurors what kind of vehicle you owned?
I believe it was a 2004 Audi S4 in blue.
Would you recognize that vehicle if you saw it today?
Of course.
What's your name?
So, Mr. Badero, I'm showing you what's been marked for identification as State's Exhibit 22.
Exactly.
Do you recognize that?
That's definitely my old car, yes.
And so you recognize it as your old car?
Yes.
I'm sorry, sir. I'm going to ask you the big courtroom.
Just speak
everybody wants
louder.
to hear you, so
Okay.
please keep your voice up.
Yes, that was my vehicle.
Okay. Is this a fair and accurate representation of your vehicle? Is
Yes.
this what your vehicle looked like, in other words?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this point I move to strike ID and mark the full State's Exhibit 22.
Any objection?
May we approach?
Yes.
Mr. Badero, I'm showing you what's been admitted as State's Exhibit 101. Do you recognize the individual that's depicted in this photo?
Yes, sir.
And who do you recognize that to be?
That's Adam Montgomery.
And Mr. Badero, is this the same Adam Montgomery that you met in August of 2019?
Yes, sir.
How often would you interact with Mr. Montgomery back in 2019?
I saw him maybe every few days or something like that.
How about Kayla Montgomery? Do you know someone named Kayla Montgomery?
Yes, sir.
And how do you know her?
I happened to meet her in 2013.
2013?
Yes.
How did you meet the defendant in August of 2019?
I needed a ride to the Rockingham courthouse to dispute a driving without a license ticket, and I needed a ride, so I happened to call a friend of mine, and he didn't have his car, so he said that he was with a friend of his, and that he would ask him if he can give me a ride. He called me back, told me that the guy said okay, then him and Adam Montgomery came to pick me up to take me to court, and when they arrived with 3 children, with Harmony and the 2 boys.
And you mentioned Harmony and 2 boys. Did you see those 3 children after that event?
Yes.
When did you, let's talk about, when did you last see Harmony?
The last time I saw Harmony was the second and last time I ever saw her, and that was about 3 weeks to a month later after the August incident. I saw her with them where they resided at.
Mr. Badero, I want to switch gears with you again. Have you ever been convicted of a felony drug charge?
Yes, sir.
Were you in fact convicted of felony drug possession in 2014?
14. I think so, yes.
How about in 2016?
Yes.
How about in 2019?
No.
And Mr. Badero, did you provide testimony to the grand jury related to this case back in March of 2022? So March 21st of 2022.
I believe, yes, sir.
And do you remember being asked in that grand jury proceeding whether or not you sold drugs to the defendant back in 2019?
Yes, sir.
Did you provide an honest answer to that question?
No, I did not.
During that grand jury testimony, were you given any type of immunity before you were asked the questions about drugs? And after your testimony, after your grand jury testimony, did you agree to meet with investigators regarding the case?
Yes, sir.
And was that in September of 2022?
Sounds about right.
At that point, had you been provided any type of immunity regarding drug activity?
No, I don't think so.
Do you recall agreeing to meet with those investigators, signing a written document?
I did agree to meet with them, yes, with an attorney.
Did you have an understanding about how your statements could be used, whether they could be used against you?
Yes.
What was your understanding of that?
That they would not use it against me as long as I told the truth.
And you mentioned having an attorney.
Yes.
Is that attorney here with you today?
Yes, sir.
And regarding your testimony here today, have you been provided immunity based on that drug information?
Yes, sir.
Before testifying today, you were provided immunity?
Yes, sir.
Based on that, Mr. Badero, I want to ask you questions about your sale of drugs back in 2019. Specifically, back in 2019, did you sell drugs to the defendant, Adam Montgomery?
Yes, sir.
Did you sell drugs to Kayla Montgomery?
Yes, sir.
How often would you sell the defendant and Kayla drugs?
Whenever I had any available.
How frequently was that?
Not frequent.
Were you actively selling drugs back then?
When I did have, yes.
And how would they pay you when they would purchase those drugs?
They would either pay me with cash or they would sell me food stamps.
Let's talk about that.
Yes, sir.
What do you mean when you say they would sell you food stamps?
Well, I would give them half of whatever they gave me in food stamps.
Let me back up. What type of drugs were they buying from you back then?
Heroin and crack.
Mr. Badero, did the defendant, in this case, Adam Montgomery, did he ever sell drugs for you?
Negative, no.
Did you ever employ Mr. Montgomery to sell drugs for you?
No.
Did you ever hire him in any capacity?
No.
Mr. Badero, I want to turn your attention to Thanksgiving of 2019. Does that time frame stand out to you?
Yes, sir.
And can you tell these jurors why that stands out to you?
Because they approached me saying they had no place to live, and I let them stay in my vehicle.
And can you describe that arrangement where you let them stay in your vehicle?
Well, the reason I had them stay in the vehicle is because I was living with somebody else that it was their apartment, and there was no room for them to be there. So the only choice I had was to let them stay in my vehicle.
And do you recall the specific? Let me back up. How many days did they stay in your vehicle?
2 days.
2 days.
Yes, sir.
Do you recall the specific days?
No, it was just after Thanksgiving weekend.
And Mr. Badero, who stayed in your vehicle?
Adam, Kayla, and the 2 boys.
Earlier, you mentioned Adam's third child, Harmony.
Yes.
Where was Harmony during that time where you let them stay in your vehicle?
I do not know.
Was she with them?
No.
Did you see her at any point during that period where they were staying in your vehicle?
No, sir.
And do you recall how they came to be living in your vehicle? Can you tell the jurors what that conversation was like?
Well, from what I recall, they gave me a call and told me they had no place to go. They came to where I was staying at. I let them upstairs. We talked, and I told them, I was like, I could let you stay in my car, but I can't let you stay here because this is not my apartment. That was the arrangement.
The car that you allowed them to stay in, was that the same car that I showed you an image of?
Yes, sir.
Months ago? Mr. Badero, back in late 2019, did you have a Facebook account?
Yes.
What was your Facebook name back then, if you can recall?
Anthony Tone Capone Bodero.
Anthony Tone, sorry?
Capone Bodero.
Is that your full name, or?
No, that's just the street name.
Tone specifically, is that what you go by?
Well, they call me Tony.
Were you friends with the defendant on Facebook, the defendant in this case?
Yes, I believe so, yes.
Do you recall what his Facebook name was back then?
I believe it was his name, Adam Montgomery.
How often would you communicate back then, late 2019? How often would you communicate with the defendant?
I don't remember, sir.
How would you communicate with him?
Telephone, mostly.
Did you communicate with him on Facebook at any point?
I don't recall, but I wouldn't doubt it.
So I want to talk about those 2 days when they were staying in your car. The defendant, Kayla, and their 2 sons. Did you take them anywhere during those 2 days?
No.
Do you think that seeing your Facebook messages might refresh your recollection regarding whether or not you took them somewhere?
I guess.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes, you may.
I finished.
So, Mr. Badero, first let me ask, does that refresh your recollection regarding whether or not you drove the defendant?
To tell the truth, I don't even remember.
Okay. The item that you just reviewed, what do you understand that to be?
Guess they must have reached out to me. They needed to go to the clinic. They asked for a ride, and I guess I must have told them, give me 20 minutes. I just woke up, and I guess I must have took them to the clinic.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Is that a conversation between yourself and the defendant?
I don't even remember. It could have been with Adam or Kayla.
Okay. Mr. Badero, as part of your involvement with this case, did you provide consent for officers to search your Facebook account?
Yes.
Mr. Badero, during that 2-day period where the defendant slept in your car, did you allow him to drive your vehicle at all?
I don't think so. I wouldn't let nobody drive my car.
And seeing those messages, does that refresh your recollection at all regarding whether or not you took them to the methadone clinic?
It does not, sir.
And do you recall specifically having those communications with the defendant?
No, I do not.
Mr. Badero, when the Montgomery stayed in your vehicle, how often would you see them?
Not much.
What does not much mean?
Like, I was upstairs in my apartment with my wife, and I hardly went outside.
Mr. Badero, do you recall sitting down with investigators and talking to them about that period of time?
Yes.
Do you recall telling them specifically that you rarely saw the defendant and Kayla during that period?
I rarely saw them. But I wasn't checking on them.
Were you aware of their living situation prior to them living in your car?
Not sure. Just I know they told me they had no place to go, and that's why I let them stay in the car.
And at that time, were you aware of where they had been living immediately before then?
I don't recall.
Do you recall whether they were staying in their own vehicle prior to using yours?
No, I don't.
Those rare times that you would see them, how would you see them during that period?
They would come see me. After I served them, they would leave.
And when you say they would come see me, is that the defendant and Kayla, or is that someone else?
They either came together or separate.
Do you recall telling those investigators that they were always together?
Yeah, they were always together.
During those 2 evenings, or those 2 days that you allowed them to stay in your vehicle, did something happen to your vehicle during that time?
Oh, yes. The first night, I guess, from what they told me, Kayla didn't know how to drive a manual transmission car. She turned it on for the heat, and it killed the battery. And I guess when he woke up, he went somewhere, supposedly from what they said, he went somewhere in the middle of the night to get a portable car charger. So by the time the next day when I came out, they already had the car started. So I don't know. I wasn't around, so I don't know.
Mr. Badero, do you recall specifically who told you that information about Kayla starting the car?
They were both telling me they were both together.
Do you recall telling investigators that the defendant actually gave you that information?
No.
They were both together when you learned it.
Well, yeah, they were both together.
And I'm sorry, you said that earlier. They were always together.
Yes. Yeah.
Did you provide them any items during their two days in your vehicle?
Yes.
Can you tell the jurors what you gave them?
I gave them leftover Thanksgiving dinner one night, and then the following day, I bought 2 pies from Domino's Pizza, and I gave them a pie, and I still got a pie for me and my wife.
Mr. Badero, if I can have just a moment. Showing you what's been published, admitted and published as State's Exhibit 1.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. And when you say, yeah, that's it, what do you recognize that to be?
I reckon that to be the house where they were residing in.
That house, Gilbert Street.
Yes, I believe that's in Senior Street.
How many times did you go to this house?
I think maybe, I don't even remember the one time, but it could have been twice. But I remember only one time. I didn't go visit them, so I don't know.
Thank you, Mr. Badero. No further questions, Your Honor. I pass the witness.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Mr. Badero. My name is Caroline Smith. How are you?
All right, good afternoon.
A little bit nervous?
Always.
Okay. And I think your first introduction to this case was when marshals came to speak to you?
Yes.
In January of 2022.
Yes.
And you wanted nothing to do with this case, right?
Well, I didn't know anything about the case. So,
Yeah, except for what you read in the paper, right?
except for what the officers told me.
Okay. And you said, I've got no involvement with anything involving a child, right?
Exactly.
And
Yes. Yes.
no way, right?
No.
Okay. And you got subpoenaed to the grand jury,
Yes.
and they had you swear an oath there to tell the truth, right?
Yes.
And they gave you some ground rules about your testimony at the grand jury, right?
What you mean ground rules?
Okay. Well, they told you that you could refuse to answer a question if it would incriminate you, right?
No, they didn't tell me that.
Does that refresh your recollection?
No.
Okay. In the transcript to the grand jury, well, while you were in the grand jury, you were advised that you had the right to refuse to answer a question if it might incriminate you, right?
From what it says here, yes, I guess. I just don't remember.
Okay, that's fine. And it says that, yes, you understood, right?
Yes.
So, you also said you lied to the grand jury, right?
Yes.
Okay. And being advised that you had the right to refuse to answer a question or you had the right to an attorney, you chose to lie under oath.
I didn't know that I was going to need an attorney.
Okay.
So I agreed to answer their questions.
So when the question came up to something that would incriminate you, you chose to lie rather than ask for an attorney, right?
I got scared, and I didn't think about what they told me about asking for an attorney.
Sure, sure. And you were scared because they thought you had information about Harmony, right?
Yes.
And you didn't want anything to do with this, right?
Of course.
You didn't want to be implicated in this in any way at all, right?
No.
Okay. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit here. You talked about meeting Adam because you needed a ride to court.
Yes.
And you didn't have a license that day, right?
No.
Have you ever had a license?
No.
You did not have a license in November of 2019 then, right?
No.
If you've never had one, you
I
didn't
never
have
had
one.
one, exactly.
Excuse me. And you didn't have one in December of 2019?
No.
Okay. And you talked about your prior convictions. And one of the prior convictions, I think that you said was possession of a controlled drug from 2018.
Yes.
And that was actually possession with intent to sell, right? Or dispense.
I guess. I don't recall.
Okay. If I showed you a copy of the record of that conviction, would that help refresh your recollection?
Maybe.
Okay. I'm going to show you what is a certified copy of a conviction, return from Superior Court, state prison sentence for Anthony Badero, right?
Yes.
And January 12, 2018.
That's when I was released.
That was the day you were sentenced. Well, actually, okay.
I got released as well.
Yeah, because you were actually in jail pre-trial, and the day you got sentenced, you got a suspended sentence, and they released you.
How released? All I know is they let me go.
Okay. And so you got a sentence of 3 to 6 years with all but 92 days suspended. Does that sound right?
No. I believe it was the 92 whatever days time served, and then suspended time after.
Right. Okay. I may have said it wrong because I have gotten a little bit tired. So it was 3 to 6 years as a sentence. All of that was suspended except for the 92 days that you had already served.
Yes.
So when you mean you got released, you were held on bail before the conviction, and the day you got sentenced, you were let out.
Well, they picked me up from a state prison. I did a bit in a state prison. They picked me up. I did 92 days here in Valley Street, and then I got released.
Gotcha. Okay. And so then you had a suspended sentence hanging over your head of 3 to 6 minus that 92 days.
Yes.
Okay. And that was suspended for 3 years.
Yes.
Okay. And then in November 22nd, 2019, you got another drug charge.
No.
Drug conviction, sorry.
No. Say that again. When?
November 22nd, 2019, you got convicted on another charge.
No.
Okay.
That's wrong.
I think I was going to show you another certified copy of another conviction, okay? I can show you return from Superior Court, Anthony Badero, sentence November 22nd, 2019.
Sorry, I don't know anything about that. The last time I did time for drugs I came home in 2018.
Sure, because on this one you got a total 2 to 4 suspended. Do you remember that?
No, I don't.
Okay. And your attorney was Attorney Sheehan?
Yeah, that was from the old case. That's not. I have it confused.
Okay.
It can't be 2019 because I never got caught with drugs anything after 2018.
Okay, so let's take a look at this. On June 24, 2019, you were driving without a valid license, right?
That, yes.
And while you were driving without a valid license, they found drugs in your car.
No.
Basis?
No.
So, and I've moved to introduce this as the next exhibit, and I don't know whether or not. Okay. Mr. Badero?
Yes.
Okay. By the way, you have some stuff here that maybe we'll take away because I'll focus on something else now, okay?
No problem.
So I have in front of me what's been marked as a full exhibit, a certified copy of your conviction from November 22nd, 2019. And we went over that first page.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to go over the second page. And that second page is the sentence that you got on that conviction, right?
I see what you have there, but that's not what it was for. I was caught driving without a license.
Okay. And you got, according to this document, you got a sentence of 2 to 4 years, suspended for 3 years, right?
Yes.
That means that 2 to 4 years you don't spend in jail or prison, it hangs over your head for 3 years.
Yes.
With conditions that you stay arrest-free and you commit no new crimes and stuff like that, right?
Yes.
And another conviction was that you got a LADAC evaluation and within 60 days provide proof to the state, right?
What's LADAC?
Drug and alcohol evaluation. Do you remember that?
Kind of.
Okay. So now we're going to go to the actual charge that was based on. And That's the indictment. You've seen indictments, right?
Yes.
And the indictment is for activities that you did on or about June 24, 2019. Is that what it says?
Yes.
And the activity that you did was possession of a controlled drug. Is that right?
That's what it says.
And this was in County of Rockingham, right?
Yes.
And it was Superior Court, right?
Yes, yes.
Like this court, Superior.
Of course.
Okay. And then you also had with that a misdemeanor for driving after revocation.
Okay.
With a sentence on the same day.
That's what it says.
Okay. And your sentence for that was 12 months in the House of Correction, all suspended for 3 years, right?
Okay.
Meaning that you got another year hanging over your head for that 3 years, right?
Yes.
And one of the conditions here was that you not drive until you are properly licensed.
Yes.
So you got arrested for both of those things at the same time, right?
All I recall is getting arrested for driving without a license.
Okay.
Drug charges.
And so that the jury recognizes it when they see it later, if I may just sort of show them. So November 22nd, you don't recall it now, but you didn't have a license then, right?
No.
And it sounds like you're saying today you were selling drugs in November?
I don't recall.
Selling drugs in December of 2019?
I don't recall.
Didn't you say on direct that you sold some to Adam and Kayla?
I have, yes.
Okay, so you were still selling drugs in December.
I don't recall.
So when you were telling the state that you sold drugs to Kayla and Adam, are you saying that was not in December?
I'm not saying that.
When you said that, you weren't necessarily talking about December of 2019 when you told the state you were selling them drugs.
Say that, repeat that?
Okay. Were you selling them drugs around the time that they stayed in your Audi?
I don't think, no. I don't, okay. Not that weekend. I can't say I sold them drugs that weekend. No, I know I didn't sell them drugs that weekend.
You know you didn't sell drugs that weekend. No. You can remember that clearly.
I'm pretty sure I remember that.
Okay. Okay. Well, let's talk about those food stamps. Those food stamps, didn't that, they sell you some food stamps when they were in Kayla's mother's home?
I don't know where they were at. I just bought the food stamps.
Okay. About when they were at the fit shelter? Okay.
I probably did. I don't know where they were at I didn't go. I don't remember where I went to see them for them to give me the card.
Okay. Your Audi had a clutch, right?
Yes.
And the problem with the clutch is somebody turns on the battery without turning on the car, the battery just runs down.
Yes.
And otherwise, you have to put in the clutch and have it in neutral or whatever, and turn it on and keep it neutral, and then it can run for a long time, and the heat stays on.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And Kayla didn't seem to know that, and the car broke down.
Yes.
Well, the car battery died.
Battery died.
Okay. And okay. You said that the picture of your car was in this same condition, and it states exhibit for ID 22. Is it stricken? It's fine. I would agree if it wasn't. Was in the same condition as the last time you saw it, right?
Yes.
Because the last time you saw it, it had been sitting for a while.
It was worse. It was worse.
Okay. But when you had it at Colonial Village, it was in good condition.
Yes.
It was in real good condition.
Very good condition.
And you like to drive it around.
I mean, I drove it, yes, I drive around.
Okay, and you kept it in good condition.
Yes.
You took care of it, right?
Yes.
And in November, late November, you had just been convicted of a crime. You had a suspended sentence on your head, and you didn't want to be caught driving that car without a license again, right?
True.
So you had other people help you drive.
Sometimes.
Okay. Adam was one of those other people.
Yeah, he has driven the car, yeah.
Okay. And Adam knew how to drive a clutch, right?
Yes.
Okay. Because and your clutch, because he had driven that car. I think you said on direct that you saw Harmony twice at Guilford Avenue.
No, one time at Guilford Avenue.
And what was the other time?
Before that, the day he took me to court in August.
Oh, so she was in the car.
Yes.
Okay. And with the boys.
Yes.
And at Guilford Avenue, she was there and playing with the boys.
Yes.
And you said that Kayla and Adam needed a place to stay Thanksgiving weekend?
Yes.
And when they came and told you that they needed a place to stay, you said that you would let them stay in your car for 2 nights.
I didn't specifically say 2 nights. I said they can stay in my vehicle, but they happen to only stay 2 nights.
Okay.
2 days, 2 whole days.
Okay. And one of those nights, it ran out, the battery got drained.
From what they say, the first night, yes.
Okay. And you are saying that you did not go down and see them sort of squatting in the parking lot at Colonial Village.
No.
In their secret.
No, I did not.
And you are saying that you did not go down on a daily or every other day basis to connect with the family and see Harmony and wave to her.
No.
And you are saying that Harmony did not wave to you during that time.
I didn't say they didn't have Harmony with them.
Pardon?
They did not have Harmony with them
Okay. When?
when they came to see me.
On those 2 days or before those 2 days?
It depends when you're talking about.
Okay. Did you ever, are you saying you did sometimes go down to the car to see them?
I'm pretty sure I went down a couple of times each day.
Okay. Okay.
But each time they did not have the girl with them. It was
Okay.
only the boys.
And when you were questioned by the police, they actually played a recording of Kayla's statement, right?
Yes.
And they played a recording of Kayla talking about so they played a section of Kayla's statement, and you got pretty upset with that, right?
Yes.
Got pretty upset with what you were hearing.
Okay, yes.
And you said that you never saw Harmony.
I never did.
And that you didn't go down there.
Let's go. When did I not see Harmony? You're just saying I didn't see Harmony, but where? When?
At the Colonial Village.
No.
And that you didn't go down to the car on a daily basis. Right?
Well, 2 days they stood in the car. I went down at least a couple of times each day.
For 2 days, you went down a couple of times.
At least a couple of times, yes.
Those 2 days.
Those 2 days.
Okay. And you never. You're saying you never waved to Harmony.
Never.
Never waved to the boys. Overruled.
I'm telling you, she just wasn't in the car. How can I wave to someone that's not in the car?
You waved to the boys.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I did. Yeah.
Okay.
The boys loved me.
So you would go to, when you would go down there, you would see the boys and wave.
Of course.
And you want to have nothing to do with this investigation or Harmony, right?
It's not the way you're making it sound. I want to help you guys.
Who?
The prosecution helped find who killed that little girl.
Okay, so one of the things before they stayed in your car was you drove Adam and Kayla and the kids to get clothes out of their broken down car.
I don't recall that. I don't think I ever did that. Okay. I'm not sure, but I don't recall I ever did that.
Okay.
Why would I? No. I wouldn't stuff my car with anything. Let's put it like that.
You wouldn't know what?
I would not stuff my car with a whole bunch of furniture or bags or anything like that.
Okay, so bags that were from a car that people had lived in for 7 days, you never got them and packed them into your car.
I don't recall ever doing that. No, I do not.
And so you don't recall taking Adam or Kayla or Adam and Kayla or Adam and Kayla and the boys?
No matter how you put it, I don't recall.
Okay. And the food that you brought them, you said Thanksgiving leftovers, right?
Yes.
And then pizza.
Yes.
And Thanksgiving, if you had them in your car for around the 8th, Thanksgiving was over a week before, right?
Well, of course, that would be right.
Okay. Thanksgiving was about 10 days before that, right?
guess. I don't know what you're talking about.
And actually, you gave the family Thanksgiving leftovers when they first came to Colonial Village in Sebring.
No.
You didn't give them?
There was no Sebring.
Okay.
They stood in my car. If they had their Sebring, they would have stood in their own car, wouldn't you think?
Okay. And you're saying that they did not park out in Colonial Village for 10 days prior to living in your Sebring?
I don't own a Sebring. And if they did bring the car to the parking lot, then I didn't know that either.
Okay.
They telling me they have no place to live. I let them stay in my car 2 days. That's
And
all they stood. They left.
I do want to correct. I did say Sebring and I meant the Audi.
Okay.
So you're saying that you did not see the Sebring in Colonial Village for the 10 days leading up to when they stayed in your Audi?
I didn't see the car, no.
Okay. You said that the boys loved you. Had you seen the boys for more than those 2 times before?
Before and after, yes.
Before?
Yeah.
When did you see the boys before?
I saw Adam came to see me one time with the oldest one.
Pardon?
Adam came to see me one time with the oldest one.
Okay. And how about the others?
I guess the other one, they were with Kayla, I guess.
Okay. But I'm asking, so now that's 3 times.
No, that's not 3 times I saw Harmony. No.
Okay.
Don't get it confused.
I'm not.
I only saw her 2 times.
I'm backing up.
Okay.
Okay. First time you saw Harmony, she was with her brothers.
Yes.
Second time you saw Harmony, she was with her brothers.
Yes.
You're talking about another time that you see the brother, but not Harmony.
Yes.
How many other times did you see that brother?
Plenty of times.
When?
Throughout the whole time I knew them.
Okay. Did you see the boy prior, more than those 3 times that we're talking about?
When are you referring to? Before Harmony went missing or after Harmony went missing?
I'm trying to get there. Before the 8th, when they stayed in your Audi, had you seen the son more than 3 times?
Of course.
When?
I can't tell you exactly when, but I've seen the boys with them.
In the 10 days prior to staying in the Audi, you saw the boys with them?
I can't tell you exactly how many days prior to the day I let them stay in the car, but I did see them. Yeah.
Okay.
I seen the boys.
Okay.
Not the boys. Let me correct that. The boy. The boy. There was only one boy with him.
And what circumstance did you see that boy? Was Kayla coming up to see you and bringing her son with her?
No, Adam came to see me with the boy.
Okay, so Adam would come up to see you and he'd bring his son.
Yeah.
Okay. And did they ever come in to use the bathroom or maybe clean up their kids?
No.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Badera.
You're welcome.
Mr. Badera, what's your involvement been like with the legal system? How?
Been very bad, sir. I'm not gonna lie.
Attorney Smith was just asking you about this time that the defendant came to see you with his oldest son.
Yes.
Do you recall when that was?
Don't recall exactly when, but it was before Thanksgiving.
Before Thanksgiving.
Before Thanksgiving.
You said that the 2 days they were staying in your car, that you remember that clearly, that you didn't sell drugs to them. You were very clear on that. Why is that?
Because it's like it was a family weekend. Like I don't recall selling them drugs that weekend. I don't even recall me having drugs.
Mr. Badera, let me ask you this. How many times have you allowed a family to stay in your vehicle?
I never have. That was the first time.
Was that the only time?
First and only time, yes.
Does that stand out to you?
Well, I remember, yeah.
The defense asked you about letting people drive your car. You didn't have a license, is my understanding. Is that right?
Yes.
And the defense attorney asked about letting people drive your car. I want to follow up on that. You said that you'd occasionally allow folks to drive for you.
Not really. I would drive myself. I ain't gonna lie. I didn't have a license, but I would drive myself.
Do you recall telling investigators that I didn't let anyone drive my car? I didn't let them drive it. Do you recall telling investigators that?
I'm pretty sure I did, yeah.
The them that you were referring to, is that the defendant and Kayla?
Well, I wouldn't lend them my car. That's what they were. I don't know what y'all really trying to say by that, but I would never have lent them my car. Yeah, I recall the time he drove me somewhere in my own car. Yes, but I've never lent him my car to just be on their own and drive my car.
And the time that you're talking about, where you went in your car and let him drive you somewhere, when was that?
I don't even recall, sir.
You recall whether there was snow on the ground, whether it was hot or warm outside?
I don't remember any of that.
You mentioned seeing the two boys.
Yes.
And them waving at you, you waving back. Were you referring to the 2 days that they were staying in that the boys were staying in your vehicle, or was that some other time?
Actually, yeah, that was some other time. I was just, whenever they saw me, they waved to me. They said hi. I would grab them, hug them. I can't recall every time they said they waved to me. That's what all kids do. They say hi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So Adam did drive you around in your car, but you don't recall exactly when.
Of course, because it wasn't on a regular basis.
But it was more than once.
I can't even say that. I don't even recall that.
Okay.
I'm thinking it was only one time.
Okay. And when you interacted with the boys, it wasn't just waving. I think you'd say that they came up and they were hugging.
Yes.
So it wasn't just a wave from afar. If the kids were around, you came up to them and interacted.
All the time.
Okay. Oh. No further questions.
That wraps up this witness's testimony. Definitely interesting to hear his interactions with the family and how how his life has how his life has interacted with theirs, and just how messy Adam and Kayla's life is, and how they really dragged their children into everything that they struggled with and kind of imposed on them. So, it's not like they were just living this peachy keen life throughout and then, this tragedy happened. It's definitely like a lot of domino effects happening, their drug use, they're homeless, all these elements adding to the dysfunction of their family and the dynamics with their children, which is really sad that they, again, drag their children into this mess. All right, guys, as always, thank you for hanging out. Super appreciate it. And I will see you guys tomorrow for some more trial. See you then.